Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Lab Maniacs set review. I am Dan, and because I don't know which direction I am facing on the final product, Sigi is somewhere next to me. Hi, Sigi.
Hi
Actually, he
Dan.
has to be this way, this way, because I'm smart and can figure things out. That's Sigi. So, we are coming back to you with another set review. As you know, whenever a set comes out, we like to evaluate the new cards in it. A set that comes out with new cards, not reprint sets. Those don't matter for the purposes of innovative deck building. They just make it easier to build decks because they reduce the cost of cards. Whenever a set comes out with new cards, we like to do a set review of the new cards and the new cards only with regards to competitive EDH, specifically competitive, because we are not a casual commander channel. We don't evaluate cards with a battle cruiser meta in mind. We evaluate them with a competitive meta. Think vintage or legacy, as opposed to standard or standard with more cards. So a lot
Extended.
of the time we're looking at the 1 and the 2 cost instance or the 1 and the 3 cost creatures. We're not looking as much at the 6 to 12 drops that tend to get played a lot at the more casual tables. So if you see us evaluating cards that you like harshly, it's probably with a different frame of reference in mind. If you see us or don't see us evaluating cards that you really like, that is also likely the case. To get started, Sigi, are you ready for the first card from War of the Spark that is going to make it onto the Lab Maniac set review?
Oh, I've been ready for a couple of days now. Yeah,
Yeah, you
let's do
have.
it.
This is Fblthp the Lost. Fblthp the
Ooh.
Lost is a legendary creature, homunculus, that costs 1 and a blue. It is a 1/1, and the rules text reads, when Fblthp the Lost enters the battlefield, draw a card. If it entered from your library or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. When Fblthp the Lost becomes the target, well, specifically just when Fblthp, because they cut the Lost for time, but I didn't, becomes the target of a spell, shuffle Fblthp into its owner's library. What do you think, Siggy?
So you remember how back when we made the first version of the Kaho deck, we said that that was basically mono blue Doomsday? Well, now we almost literally have mono blue Doomsday. So the cool thing about Fblthp as a commander is, if you have a Proteus staff and no other creatures in your deck, you can activate Proteus Staff targeting your Fblthp to shuffle it back in, and then you can stack your deck however you want. He comes back out, and you get to draw 2 cards from his effect, which essentially functions as a way to crack your Doomsday pile. So yeah, that's really, really interesting in my opinion.
And we put him on the cEDH set review because he has a combo with Proteus staff.
Yeah, a 1-card combo with your commander in the command zone, which is quite good, I'd say, especially because that 1 card is very easily tutorable in mono blue, seeing as it's an artifact.
That is true. That is one of the 2 broad types that blue can tutor for. I hear he also has some maybe meme, maybe real applications in divergent transformations.
Oh yeah. You can play him and Trophy Mage as your only 2 creatures, and then you can essentially do the same thing, but with more colors and for a bit more mana.
That makes sense. And in the spirit of modern cEDH, given that everything seems to be taking decks that existed at 1 and 2 color and putting them into partner builds so you can have more cards, it's possible Fblthp becomes 4 color before he even got to be shuffled.
So
Which that's fine with me, honestly.
there is one very real downside to Fblthp, regardless of whether you play him as a commander or in your deck, and that's the part where he gets shuffled in if any spell targets him. That means that if your opponents have any instant spell that targets or can target a creature in response to your Proteus staff combo, it is not going to work. And that, unfortunately, is a major downside because it also means that your counter spells will not be able to protect Fblthp.
Yeah. He almost has built-in anti-protection,
That is
which makes
sadly true.
sense, given that he's like this little dumpster homunculus.
Yeah.
So that's Fblthp. As we have like a ton of cards in the set review, we're going to go a little quicker through them than we usually do. We are not going to be ponderous this time. Finale of Revelation. X blue blue. This is a sorcery and a mythic rare. Draw X cards. If X is 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap up 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Exile. Finale of Revelation. Instantly, I just clench up in disgust at exile this card because I hate that line of text on every card has ever been printed on, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit rough.
So why are we talking about Finale of Revelation today, Sigi?
Because it's quite interesting, really. It's a type of effect that we've never really seen before, especially in this combination. And X-Draw spells have always had some amount of niche utility in competitive EDH.
Typically at instant speed.
Yeah, and that is indeed the major downside of this one. It's a sorcery. Now, the X equals 10 or more case is what makes this card special, and while it's not particularly realistic that most decks are going to reach this, with the exception of maybe like a dedicated High Tide deck,
Which don't exist anymore.
it's such a cool effect.
It is. But it is 12 mana at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
Enter the Infinite does that.
That's a
And
very
it
good point.
draws the whole deck, not just the 10 for the
Doesn't
12
it
mana.
doesn't it double draw? Isn't it like, do you basically not get draw X and then another draw X if you do the X equals 10 or more?
No, because it's instead. Instead, shuffle your graveyard and your
Okay.
library, draw X. So basically, this would be a draw 10 for 12 mana that also pretend twisters and does the Praetor's Council thing.
Okay.
Compared to Enter the Infinite, which would be 12 mana, draw your whole deck, and then give yourself an out for next turn, which I know
Yeah.
some people don't always leave themselves.
So if you're not already playing Enter the Infinite, or of course stuff in other colors, but if we're just focusing on mono blue, if you're not already playing Enter the Infinite and you're not already playing stuff like Stroke of Genius or Pull from Tomorrow, then you should probably play those before you play this one. But if you're already playing those and you really need like another X-Draw spell, this one is probably a good option.
Yeah, it's okay. It's better than like Brain Geyser or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, yeah. Finale of Revelation. Next up, we have God Eternal Kefnet. This is a legendary creature, zombie god, for 2 and 2 blue. It is a 4/5 with flying. You may reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it. Whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card this way, copy that card, and you may cast that copy. That copy costs 2 generic mana less to cast. When God Eternal Kefnet dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put into its owner's library third from the top. So, God Eternal Kefnet is a flying siege rhino that has the new god recursion of tucking itself third from the top whenever it would be vanished from the battlefield. And it lets you sort of draw extra cards, sort of copy them, like it's a sort of Phyrexian arena-ish. What you got, Siggy?
Quite a lot. I like Kefnet. Now, let's talk about combo stuff with her first, because that's like the most immediate thought. She combos with Scroll Rack and any extra turn. In lieu of Scroll Rack, you can also use other cards that put cards back on top of your deck. For instance, you can do something like Isochron Scepter and a Brainstorm, or a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Now, this is cool because it's essentially a 1.5 card copy with the command combo, not copy, with the commander. 0.5 because there are a lot of redundant extra turn effects in blue.
What, like 10 playable ones?
It gets pretty close, yeah. And Scroll Rack, once again, is an artifact, so we can tutor for it, which means the combo as a whole is quite accessible. Another upside here is that this combo is not just accessible, but Kefnet herself, compared to a lot of other mono blue generals, will also be a value engine during the game. So you can play Kefnet, and you will not be able to draw cards and copy spells every time, but it's a fairly decent chance, really. And it's
Yeah.
better than having a commander that's just a combo piece most of the time.
Conceptually, I'd imagine that this is a very efficient draw engine in a heavy Xerox style build. So if you maximize on your cantrips, then every turn you're very likely to be able to spend 1 blue mana when you have Kefnet out and draw a card, or look at the top 4 and draw a card, or
Oh
draw
yeah,
3 cards and put 2 back, or something like that. So
yeah. And
you
the
can
nice
build
part,
her to be very effectively card advantage.
yeah, and the nice part about running a lot of cantrips in her is that they benefit both sides of her ability, not just the side
Oh
where
yeah,
you enable the draws, but also the side where you benefit off those cantrips if you find them on the top of your deck.
I like it. God Eternal Kefnet. Maybe the next Kaho. Maybe the next Teferi. Probably the next Kaho.
No, I think she's gonna be decent. Maybe
You
not
said
quite a
that
fairy
about
level,
Kaho
but
too.
decent enough.
Next up, we have Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. This is a legendary planeswalker, subtype Jace, as you may imagine from the name Jace. It costs 1 and 3 blue mana. Starting loyalty is 4. I'm pretty sure this is the first planeswalker we've ever reviewed on Lab Maniacs. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't
It
remember ever covering a
might be.
loyalty ability or starting loyalty. That's pretty cool. I like that it's this one. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Yes, that is a static ability on a planeswalker. They have those now. It's a Lab Maniac. He's a Lab Maniac.
Yeah.
+1 loyalty. Target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Draw a card. So +1 Thought Scour. -8. Draw 7 cards. Then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. So -8. Draw 7 and maintain the Lab Maniac effect in case you -8 him when he's at 8 loyalty, and you're not just like, oh no,
Oh, yeah.
my Lab Maniac died so I could draw the cards. So this is a Planeswalker Lab Maniac. What do you think, Sigi?
So, let's get this out of the way right now. We are not going to change our name to Wielders of Mystery.
Oh, man.
Please.
That's actually not bad. I never even thought about that. That'd be pretty cool. Would you
Haven't-
like a rebrand of Wielder of Mysteries? Because I'll take that rebrand. If I ever get kicked off Lab Maniacs, would you want to see Dan, Wielder of Mysteries, on YouTube? Let me know. Or Twitch. Twitch works too.
Okay, let's get back to the actual card. He's good. And one of the big reasons why he's good is that while the consultation combos with Lab Maniac and Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation have been quite popular in a variety of decks as of late, they've always kind of had the issue that you needed an extra draw effect on top of those 2 cards. So while it was technically a 2-card combo, it wasn't really that unless you were really restricted on timing because you had to do it during your upkeep and so on and so forth. It all was kind of awkward, but Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, solves that problem.
Yeah, that's a big one. The obvious downside is the triple blue in the mana cost, as has been discussed at length. So even if your Lab Maniac, which is a single blue, is stapled with a cantrip, which is another blue, there's still an extra blue floating in there that you lose out access to protection from, because all that gets baked into Jace's mana cost. So while he does draw the card, he is also more cost restrictive.
That is true, and certainly something to consider, especially for the Tainted Pact decks that don't run an amount of basic islands you'd see in earlier storm type builds that would focus on high tide.
Yeah. It is a card that if you watched our month in review stream, Wedge is not from the mana source, the cool Wedge. No offense to Wedge from the mana source, but I like my Wedge better because I know him more. It thinks is really good in Consult Kess specifically, and not necessarily in other Consult builds. And as someone who has a minor amount of experience on the Shimmer Consult hybrid for Xur, Jace is not something that I'm looking to add to that deck currently. I think the mana cost is a bit prohibitive for what my primary plans are.
Mm-hmm.
So for decks with Consult as a backup, Jace might be a little bit more restrictive than the Lab Maniac is in terms of cost. He is obviously a better card if you have him in play than Lab Maniac, incomparably better than a Gray Ogre, but it is much more difficult to put in play while maintaining your game plan. So while I like this card a lot, I think it does need to be approached cautiously, as does every Planeswalker in a format where Tymna and Najeela are two of the most popular commanders.
Yeah, that is something that we'll definitely need to keep in mind for every Planeswalker we discuss on here. Like, they are not necessarily just gonna stay on the battlefield.
Yeah, they're not enchantments with static abilities plus loyalty abilities. They are killable with creatures and dorks. Probably mostly dorks. Next up, we have another Planeswalker, Narset, Parter of Veils. Legendary
Ooh.
Planeswalker, Narset. Starting loyalty is 5. She costs 1 and 2 blue. Her static ability says each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. Her -2, her only activated loyalty ability. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So basically Impulse in any deck that would play her. I'm in love. Go ahead, Sigi.
Hello, Leo, my old friend. I'm so happy to see that effect again.
In mono blue, no less.
Yeah, I can play this in Teferi. Oh my god, it's gonna be so
know, right?
good.
This card is going to go in a lot of places.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like, even if she dies after a turn cycle or two, that's still so much tempo that you're gaining on your opponents.
Even ignoring the fact that you also got to double Impulse, which is better than 2 or 3 mana.
Yeah. I mean, like, as I said, definitely Teferi, 4-color Rush Me, probably. It's kind
Slam
of
dunk
up in
and
the
Opus
air in
Thief.
there. Oh yeah, totally. What else do we have? Divergent, 100%. That thing is going in.
Yeah. As a brief comment on all of these Planeswalkers, the uncommon ones that we're going, really actually all of them that we're going to discuss. Like Sigi mentioned before, with Jace, it is dependent on the deck. These are not slam dunks. These are not just artifacts. They are not just enchantments. They can be attacked, which means, as I mentioned in the Month in Review podcast, to properly use them, you need to pay attention to the amount of protection you can offer them. In Teferi, Narset is probably significantly weaker than she is in a deck like Opus Thief, which has Crown and Tymna to block for her, or in a deck like 4-color Rashmi, which can run Pyroclasm control effects. These Planeswalkers do have to be actively protected to be able to maintain their static effect, which is the primary draw for most of these walkers we're going to talk about.
Yep.
So do not assume that they are going to be fantastic in your 3-creature deck with a small commander, because they won't be. And they need to be evaluated with that in mind. That being said, if you have things like a Thrasios, which is a 1/3 for 2 mana that can block dorks for days, these cards become much more attractive. And that is a general overview of how I'm going to evaluate each of these cards, because we haven't really talked about Planeswalkers on a set review ever, because Planeswalkers are an abysmal card type for competitive EDH and mostly utter shit. So That's how Dan evaluates planeswalkers for cEDH. And we finally have some that actually meet that threshold.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting because, like, in terms of Planeswalker seeing play in competitive EDH, we've had Tezzeret the Seeker, which immediately dies to fetch the Chain Veil. We've had Teferi, who usually only comes out when you're trying to win. We've had Ugin, who is essentially an overcosted board wipe. And we've had deck Faden, which a lot of decks have cut by now because they aren't able to protect him particularly well anymore.
3 mana for a Faithless Looting sucks.
Yeah. It only gets good when you can, like, Faceless Looting and steal an artifact.
And even then, it's still not amazing.
Yeah, so...
But having a static ability plus a good activated ability pushes many of these over the top.
Yep. And
also, there's so many 3-mana walkers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They're hardly bad.
It's gonna be really, really interesting to see how those planeswalkers are gonna be handled in-game. Like, of course, the assumption is, yeah, we're just gonna attack them. But I think the actual dynamics of how it's gonna play out are going to be something that people will have to actively learn.
Yeah, like a Blood Pod player is almost certainly going to never attack one of these stacks planeswalkers if it is benefiting them. It is no different than any other stacks piece. You only remove it when it starts to interfere with your ability to execute your game plan. And often the case is to not interact with them. So while I do harshly criticize non-defending or not defending these effectively, sometimes you won't have to. And that's all going to be stuff you pick up in game. And honestly, we may end up releasing a video at some point talking about how they interact with the gameplay. But that's enough time on the Planeswalkers in general. Narset's gas, you're going to see her.
Oh, yeah.
Next up is a card that you're going to see even more, probably every game starting in 3 to 4 months. This is Narset's Reversal, the best card in the set. It is an instant that costs 2 blue. The text reads, copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy. If you haven't seen my 10-minute rant about Narset's Reversal on our Month in Review podcast, you should go check that out. I'm going to make Cameron try and make a floaty thing. Wait, no, annotations aren't on YouTube anymore. All right, whatever. Link in the section below. Description, not a section. Other words. Words. Oh, God, this card's so good, I can't speak. I guess I have to let Sigi talk because that's what we've described as our general process for this review. Sigi, tell me about Narset's Reversal and why I love it.
So I'd be surprised if... Narset's Reversal is the kind of card where you don't ask yourself, why should I play this? It's the kind of card where you'd have to find an extremely good excuse not to play it in your blue deck.
And you're probably wrong.
Probably, yeah. Now, what does this do? So...
What doesn't this do? Let's start there. This doesn't counter Flusterstorm.
It doesn't, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Instants or sorceries that are worth copying are, first of all, tutors. If you get a demonic tutor with this, sure, they get their demonic tutor back, but you just got an instant speed demonic tutor.
And still may have cost them a turn.
Oh, yeah.
The old remand is a time walk.
Exactly. So yeah, on one hand, we've got the remand part where it puts stuff back into people's hands, and especially for more expensive instants and sorceries, let's say ad nauseum, this part is already quite decent. We've seen stuff like remand or unsubstantiate played here and there, and they do have some decent use cases. Now, what really pushes this card over the top is the other half. The copy part. You can get tutors, you can get removal, you can get other counter spells, you can get win conditions. This lets me cast ad nauseum in Teferi. Think about that for a second.
Oh my god. You can cast ad nauseum in Teferi. You can also flash your trophy mage. You can cast a demonic tutor into Teferi. Alright, I'm taking over. This card is fucking bonkers. I honestly am not entirely sure how I guess because other formats aren't necessarily going to abuse it as much as we are. This card is so abusable in our format.
Mm-hmm.
Unsubstantiate was borderline playable on its own because this is a tempo format and tempo counterspells are fine. We have a lot of better counterspells that are not just tempo based, which is why unsubstantiate, well, really why Remand doesn't see that much play. But like, it's fine. Unsubstantiate is a card we covered in one of our set reviews, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Like, it's a decent card. And that's the floor. Return a spell, instant or sorcery, to its owner's hand. Borderline playable. The upside on this thing is insane. It wins you the game. This is a counter spell that literally wins you the game. It, oh my god, it flashes
Just-
your Hulk. I can't put words together. It's so good.
It casts Ad Nauseam for 2 mana.
It
And
casts
makes
Ad
another person
Nauseam.
not cast Ad Nauseam.
It's incredible.
I was gonna say something else about this card, but then oh yeah, it also gets around uncounterable spells, of course.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't it?
It does everything except counter Flusterstorm, which is fine. If that's what I have to pay to get a UU counterspell that also twin casts Ad Nauseam or lets me flash my Shuffle Hulk lines in response to the other Shuffle Hulk lines in response to the Ad Nauseam, then that's fine. I can deal with that.
This card is gonna change so much in terms of like in-game dynamics.
Yeah. This might be the best card we have ever had in a Lab Maniacs set review.
I'm inclined to agree, yeah. Like the other stuff I can think about is all color dash block stuff like Paradox Engine, Dramatic Reversal, but even those are not as widely applicable as Narset's Reversal.
This goes in every blue deck, and there's only like 2 real decks that aren't blue. Like this is almost not strictly, don't like mock me for this, but this is almost like getting another Soul Ring. This is gonna go in everything. I love it.
Me too.
And that's probably enough time, because that's the best card in the set. We're not going to spend as much time on anything else yet.
Yeah, let's keep
Next up,
going.
we have a far, far worse card, but that's dope as hell. Bolas' Citadel. It is a legendary artifact that costs 3 black. That's 6 mana for those of you counting. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. And then there's some, like, flavor text at the bottom. Sigi, tell me about Bolas' Citadel.
So, you know how Future Sight and Senses Divining Top and Helm of Awakening goes infinite?
Yes.
This essentially does the same, but you swap out Helm of Awakening for Wraith of Flux Reservoir. And that's just one potential application.
So I can take an unplayable combo and increase the converted mana cost on it by 3.
That's just a side thing.
Oh,
we can do other things with this card.
Like what?
So, before I get to other concrete applications, I do want to continue on the Future Sight point. I do think that this is not like another Necropotence or another Ad Nauseam or something like that. It's closer to another Future Sight. Now, what's cool is that it is a Future Sight that also makes your spells cost 0 mana, so that's cool. Also, probably worth the extra 1 mana in comparison.
Yeah, that's fair.
And one spot where I could see this being quite interesting is with a card that has seen absolutely 0 cEDH play to this day, to my knowledge at least, which is Insidious Dreams.
You know, you say 0, but I'm 99.9% sure that Insidious Dreams Sidisi has showed up in multiple cEDH things.
No, wasn't that Sickening Dreams?
Isn't Insidious Dreams the one where you discard stuff and like
No. Insidious Dreams is a 4-mana, 3 in the black instant that makes you discard X cards, and then you search your library for X cards and put them at the top of your deck in any order.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that card. I actually played that in the Sharoom deck in like 2013 or 2014 or something. Oh my god, I forgot that was even a card. It's so bad.
It's
Not bad with Citadel, though.
it's
4
kind of
mana, win
reared
the
its
game.
ugly head here and there in more casual times. But yeah, it is quite interesting with Citadel because it's one card that gets you Citadel that basically reads whatever you do after Citadel, or like whatever you are gonna do on your next turn is gonna cost 6 mana.
And be a deterministic
Not
win.
more. Yeah.
So for the low cost of 6 black, you can win the game.
It's instant speed, so you can do end of turn Insidious Dreams, untap Citadel.
So you only need 3 black to be able to win the game.
That's correct.
Not bad.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of nice about it, for instance, if you combine it with the new Jace, that guy costing 3 blue mana doesn't matter.
Very, very specific, but okay.
It might come up in an article I'm going to release soon.
Do I smell a, what do we call them, First Draft Friday article?
Yeah.
I think that is probably where Bolas' Citadel sits in the grand scheme of things. I love the card. I think it's probably a little slow.
Yeah. I'd be interested, or like I am interested to see what people are gonna do with it. So let's see how it's gonna go over the next few months.
I agree. Next up is a card we can spend about 1 minute on. Liliana's Triumph. This is an instant that costs 1 and a black. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. This is just an instant speed, merciless Marauder. Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner.
Yeah.
I just mashed those
Just
two up.
a Diabolic Edict for every opponent that has a potential upside.
Yeah, it's fine. No one's probably going to play it, but it is an option in case you do need sacrifice like that.
It's like a meta consideration if you're playing against, I don't know, stuff like Selvala, Yisan, Anima, and you want an early game option that you can use right after they've all cast their commander for the first time. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a weird black knockoff Pyroclasm. Next up, we have Dreadhorde Arcanist. This is a zombie wizard that is a 1/3, costs 1 and a ready as trample. Whenever Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So on its face, this is a 2 mana, cast your 1-drops when it attacks.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's a 1/3, so it blocks dorks well.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'll probably show up at some point.
Yeah. Cards like these always have like some kind of fringe applications, and they're always worth looking at if you need like one more card advantage engine and it's exactly tailored to how your deck is built. In those cases, something like Dreadhorde Arcanist might be good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate this in Clasm decks because it survives most Clasms. I don't hate this in Najeela decks because it's just another card advantage engine. I don't know if it's good enough for any of them, but it's not bad. Which is saying a lot for a red card. Next up, we have a much worse red card. Ilharg the Reborn. Way cooler art, though. Legendary creature Boar God. It is a 3 red 6/6 with also trample. Much more relevant on the 6/6 than the 1/3. Whenever Ilharg the Reborn attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. When Ilharg the Reborn dies or is put in, it has the same clause as Kefnet. This is just what the new gods do. They tuck themselves.
Yeah.
So this is like a super haste sneak attack that bounces itself on a 6/6 Piggo.
Yep.
Why are we talking about this, Sigi?
Because, excuse me, it gives you infinite turns with Medamai the Ageless.
That's a card.
Yep.
So it's a 5-drop red card that combos with a 6-drop blue-white creature.
Yeah.
So neither can be your commander. You're priced into Boros plus blue.
Timnocron.
So you Divergent? No, you can't Divergent.
No, you just play. So like the thing I'm envisioning for it, I can't disclose too much because this is going to be another First Draft Friday article.
Oh, that's fun.
But the basic gist is you play Timnocron Reanimator. You use and you tailor your reanimation suite towards cards that are also going to be fine if you sneak attack them in with the Raise Boar. For instance, Jin-Gitaxias will give you 7 cards if you sneak it in, because it stays until your end step, so Jin-Gitaxias still triggers. And just stuff like that. Basically, like a value-y reanimator kind of build that has Medamai plus that guy as its finisher. Maybe I'm gonna get a bit cute and do like Tortured Existence, so I can use what's its face?
Another Tornex build.
No,
I'm just gonna nip this in the bud. That's some ideas. You'll see those later.
Yeah.
Don't Neheb, the Dread Horde champion.
Yeah.
This is a legendary creature zombie Minotaur warrior. It's a 5/4 with trample for 2 and 2 red. Whenever Neheb, the Dread Horde champion, deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do draw that many cards and add that much red mana, until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So he's just like a big old rummage T-bone. Is that?
So, you know how people were playing Rada in Bloodpod?
No. I thought everyone agreed that Rada was not good in Bloodpod.
Many people did, but some still tried it. This is kind of like that, but actually good, because it gives you mana and cards.
Another fabled option for the Bloodpod mid-range slot that only exists in half of Bloodpod decks now that Lurker's Metapod has finished.
There may also be like some applications of this as a commander, but I'm not good enough at building mono red to say if that has any realistic amount of legs.
Finale of Devastation. That's enough of the red cards. X green for a sorcery. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more creatures you control, get +X and gain haste until end of turn. So it's a graveyard and library Green Sun Zenith for 1 more mana. That can also accidentally Crater Hoof or something.
It also finds creatures of any color, not just green ones, and
that's not bad.
That's really, really good. So
certainly better.
Yeah. I mean, where I'm seeing this is definitely Breakfast Hulk, because I can get my Hermit Druid, I can get my Auroch Salvagers if need be, I can get a Breakfast Piece, I can even get them back after they've died, so one card that's been quite good in Breakfast lately is Postmortem Lunch, because it gives me another shot at Hermit Druid, and this does a very similar thing, but then it also does a ton of other things, and on top of everything else, after I go infinite with my Salvagers LED stuff, this also gives me a same turn win.
Oh my god, this is a win con. You make your Auriok Salvagers and your commanders billions with haste.
Yep.
That's pretty cute. I wasn't sold until that last bit, But if you can leverage the Crater Hoof mode on this, all right, I can see it. I can see it.
I will use every tiny bit of that card.
I like it. A card I will use every tiny bit of is Dovin's Veto. This is an instant that costs a white and a blue. This spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. So it's an uncounterable negate that also costs a white instead of a generic. Is there really much to talk about here?
Me up.
Cool. Feather the Redeemed. I mean, I guess we should say like 3 sentences more on Dovin's Veto. It's an uncounterable negate.
Okay.
What do you want? Negate's playable.
It's
Uncounterable negate's better.
Instant counter spell staple.
Yeah.
If you have the colors, you play this. Like, just do it. Like, if you've been in the market for, let's say, a negate or some kind of slightly narrow counter spell, then just use this. One really interesting thing to note about Dovin's Veto, though, its uncounterability clause gets a lot worse when you're trying to protect your own stuff.
Yep.
So if you're really for instance, coming back to Breakfast Talk, I'm probably not going to play it there for that reason, because a lot of my interaction tends to be more on the protective side rather than stopping other people from winning. I like to let other people do that. So Dovin's Veto isn't quite the right fit there, because it's also like 2 mana for interaction, which isn't quite where I want to be in that deck.
I can dig it. And every generic blue-black X mid-range deck I play, it's a slam dunk.
Oh,
Except
yeah.
like Una, because she doesn't have white. Sadly.
Absolutely. Like Thrasios Tymna, Scepter, 100%.
So you mean all the decks I play? Cool. Feather the Redeemed. Legendary creature Angel. She is a flying 3/4 that costs red, white, white. Oh my god, is Dan talking about a Boros card? Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. To preface this, no, Feather the Redeemed is not very good for cEDH. Boros is not very good for cEDH. Feather is still Boros. Boros is still bad. But Feather is differently Boros in a way that is almost good. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's the best Boros that's ever been printed.
It's definitely the most interesting one. I think that's quite easy to say. And we do have to applaud Wizards for the fact that they have found a way to kind of give that color pair card advantage, and that they, for once, did not design a Boros commander that just does combat stuff.
Yeah. Feather goes nicely with the Zada suite of target cantrips, and has the upside that she will only scale up in power as Wizards prints more and better expedite-like cantrips, which I think is likely the case. If they're printing a card like this, I think it's kind of them signaling, hey, we know there's options, we're probably going to give you some more.
Yeah.
Because this is the closest they can get to card advantage in 2 colors that don't really do card advantage well, if at all.
It definitely shows that they've been making an effort to give the less liked colors in EDH some love.
Yes. Next up, we have Neoform. This is a sorcery that costs a green and a blue. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card on the battlefield with an additional +1/+. I lost it there. So this is kind of like a Birthing Pod spell, similar to Eldritch Evolution, but stricter and debatably better because of various things it can do. Sigi, take it away.
So, if we compare it to Eldritch Evolution, the first thing to notice is it doesn't exile itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you can do like some fancy Ewit stuff and whatever. But honestly, that's not something I'm personally too concerned about. Another cool thing that's going to be relevant in Standard just as much as in cEDH is its interaction with Incubation Druid, because it gives the counter Druid is going to tap for 3 right away, which is kind of sweet. Now, where am I going to play this? In Breakfast Talk, of course, because we haven't talked about that deck enough yet.
Well, it's one of 2 decks you play that isn't bugger stuff.
That is true.
And
so
Teferi has no green.
This lets me start at a mana dork, just any one CMC dork, and it gets me Hermit Druid, Cephalid Illusionist, Gilded Drake, Bloom Tender, Dark Confidant, you name it, I got it. If I start from Thrasios, I can find Spellseeker, which is quite nice. And if I start from Tymna, or any other 3 CMC creature, I can get Auriok Salvagers.
So it sounds like it's really good.
It is. It really is. There's also some like Hulk pile applications with Neoform, because you can find Spellseeker, which gets Neoform, which sacks the Spellseeker, etc.
Spellseeker gets instants, right?
Instants or sorceries.
Oh my god, Spellseeker is bonkers.
Yeah. It is. But those applications might be a bit more relevant in Shuffle Hulk, because that one can do multi-Hulk piles that way that work through Cursed Totem, thanks to Body Snatcher.
That's pretty cool. Doesn't Neoform gate them to sorcery speed, though?
Yeah.
I guess if you're fighting through a Cursed Totem, it doesn't need to be an instant speed pile, though.
Yeah.
You can only have so much.
Exactly.
A sharp 180 from what we just talked about. Nicol Bolas, Dragon God.
Oh.
Legendary Planeswalker Bolas, starting loyalty of 4. Mana cost is blue, black, 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 and also red. Static ability, Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, is all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. So, the ones it has on the card. +1, you draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. Yikes. -3, destroy target creature or Planeswalker. That's fine, I guess. -8, each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or Planeswalker loses the game. That would be a lot more impressive if we didn't have legendary creatures in the command zone.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Sigi?
I think this one might actually be a thing. Like,
where?
So, you remember how people were do you remember the hemp build from I think Kibitzen?
What?
The name's a bit of a meme, but basically it's like a mid-range ad nauseum deck. Maybe it doesn't run ad nauseum, I don't know, but it has a bunch of planeswalkers. That's like
so
the thing.
Shitty Super Friends in cEDH.
I'm not sure. It didn't have that many planeswalkers, maybe like 4. But
and that's still 4 more than most decks.
Think of it this way: we are getting a bunch of really, really playable planeswalkers in this set. That coincidentally, most of them are in the colors of this one.
So, are you telling me that I can build Kesklasm Control Super Friends in cEDH with Nicol Bolas Dragon God, Narset Parter of Veils? I can't bleep myself live. We're talking about Ashiok later. It's obvious. And like that kind of stuff?
It might be possible, yeah.
I might need to order some cards. Because that's happening.
I mean, the thing about his plus ability just by itself is that you're just taking 3 cards away from the table and you're drawing one on top of that, which is kind of sweet. And he has enough loyalty to comfortably survive a turn cycle. If you have blockers, he can maybe even survive more than a turn cycle. Probably even.
Okay, you've convinced me. Our next stream that I have these cards will be Kess Super Friends.
I mean,
Thanks,
let me
Sigi.
just say that
You did
there
this
is a
to
reason.
yourself.
There is a reason I've put this guy up for a vote on my first Draft Friday polls.
Oh, maybe I'll play that deck.
Maybe you
Perfect.
will.
All right. So that's another Planeswalker. Let's talk about Niv-Mizzet Reborn. Legendary creature dragon avatar, 6/6 flying that costs Wooburg. When Niv-Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each color pair, choose a card that's exactly those colors from among them, which means it has to be in the colors, specifically just all the 2-color combos. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Tell me about the reskin of Food Chain Tazri, Sigi.
It is what it is. It's literally Food Chain Tazri, just with other outlets. I think maybe there's gonna be a multicolor card or two that might be worth running with this, but the gist of it is really Food Chain Tazri, but with Niv-Mizzet instead of Tazri and slightly different outlets. Now, the big part about this that's going to be relevant looking into the future that we've also had with regards to other cards in this set review is that the chance of them printing another strong 2-color creature outlet for Niv-Mizzet is a lot higher than the chance of them printing another ally for Tazri.
That's true. We do get 2-color cards basically every set, and we get allies basically every decade.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard people bring up is that the allies so far have had cheaper mana costs than the multicolored cards that are used as outlets in the new Niv build, which is relevant for Ad Nauseam on one hand, and also for chaining up to cast from exile creature mana on the other.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a pretty common Prosh play to see, too. But Sigi, that art is metal as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Tazri is just some, like, badass chick standing there like, I'm a general. Niv-Mizzet is bursting reborn as a 5-color avatar of Ravnica, the guild-packed incarnate, not some little bitch like Jace. This is a giant fucking 5-color dragon.
Oh, yeah.
You tell me you'd rather play that than
I would.
Good. Rawl, Storm Conduit. This is another Planeswalker. Legendary Planeswalker, Rawl. Look at that face.
So
he costs 2, a blue and a red, for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. I'm just going to barrel through this. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Rawl Storm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker, so kind of a gutter snipe. +2 is Scry 1. Oof. -2. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So on first glance, this kind of looks like poop. Sigi, what do you think?
So that Kess Planeswalker control deck we were talking about, I heard you need a win condition for that.
What do you mean?
So
I have Nicol Bolas Dragon God's Ultimate.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy's a Planeswalker, and he has a really interesting combo with a card that I'm personally quite partial to, which is Chain of Smog. Now, Chain of Smog, for those of you who don't know, it's a 2-mana card, 1 and a black. Reads, target player discards 2 cards. They may copy that effect, and they may choose new targets for the copy. Now, Rel deals 1 damage every time you copy something. So if you Chain of Smog yourself and you keep copying it over and over and over, he pings everyone to death.
Yep, that's the thing.
Now, there is a small downside to it. You do kind of have to discard your hand, but I mean, come on, we're winning with Chain of Smog here.
Yeah, I remain unconvinced by this particular combo, mostly because Rawl as a Planeswalker, his pluses, shit. Scry 1, Scry 1? Scry 1? That's like maybe half a mana, not even.
Yeah.
That's pretty terrible. And his minus is like it's fine. It's not amazing. And he is technically an outlet for Infinite Storm regardless, so you can do stuff, but Chain of Smog, dumping your own hand, Naked Bomberman is almost never done because of how horrendously risky it is.
Yeah. It
is an option, certainly.
Yeah, it is an option indeed. Now, this does get a bit better because people need to have 2 counter spells to stop it, because you can use Rel's copy thing on your Chain of Smog to get another copy before you start discarding, so there is a bit of a window where you can protect stuff, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're still going to discard all of the whole hand at some point, and
then attempt to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is a risk. It is also a creatureless win con, so you can do it in Divergent decks if you really want to.
Yeah.
And in my Cast Super Friends deck, I'll be going other routes.
Yeah. It is nice that it works through Cursed Totem, Rest in Peace, Grafdigger's Cage, and whatever.
I agree. That is very true. Next up, we have Teferi Time Raveler. Legendary Planeswalker Teferi for 1, a white and a blue. 4 starting loyalty. Static abilities. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So basically what Creature Teferi does. +1 until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. Basically Vidalcan Orrery. -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card.
Okay.
What are we talking about Teferi for, Sigi?
So, not only is this, as you said, like the Teferi defense grid type of protective effect for your combo, it also removes a potential hate piece that stops that combo. And it does both of those things in one while also drawing a card.
And not being in green.
Oh yeah, good point.
I guess, well, Defense Grid isn't, but City of Solitude, the stronger version, is in green. That's not bad. Now, do you think a 3-drop for that effect is worth it in most decks that are in blue-white? Because none of them play Defense Grid. Or City of Solitude.
I don't think it's going to be worth it in most decks, but I could see builds being made where you'd want a card like this. If you have a combo that's usually hit by one type of hate, that's fairly common, and it's a combo that's fairly fragile in and of itself. For instance, if you were doing Divergent Fblthp in Tymna Kraum, that would be a possibility. I mean, I'm not saying that's how it should go, but that's like that's the kind of fragility that would make Teferi an incredibly good card.
You know where Teferi's going to be awesome and reinvigorate my interest in a deck?
What about Breya that mainly focuses on Bomberman combo?
Vintage Landstill, because I can bounce my standstills on my turn and still do stuff and then recast.
Oh my god. That's okay, that's actually super sweet. Wow. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Can't cast him off a Lotus though, but the rest of that is so good. I'm going to be slamming this dude in Vintage. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Well, actually, he might make it in time for my stream tomorrow. We'll see. I need to print some proxies. Anyways, that's going to be in the past when this airs. What am I talking about? All right. Yeah, that's Teferi. He's not bad. Next up is an also card. Tyrant Scorn. This is an instant that costs a blue and black. Choose 1. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less, or return target creature to its owner's hand. So it's a Doomblade-ish that can also bounce the big stuff.
So, this is one you were quite interested in. So, I'm gonna leave this one to you. Where
Sure.
do you think this would be good?
Almost nowhere. I just wanted to bring this card up because it is going to be a pretty good budget removal spell. Those are kind of at a premium in blue-black because like rapid hybridization is like $4.
What?
And I know it's stupid, or maybe it's Pongify. Either way, the removal spell options are actually non-trivially expensive. And Tyrant Scorn is probably the best like Doomblade variant we've seen in a while. I don't expect it to see play in any budget lists really. Maybe in the like blue-black fringe lists like Una or like Circu maybe. But it's fine. It destroys most of the format and it bounces the rest. And it's trivial to cast because it's blue-black and every blue-black deck is like blue-black. So
who would have thought?
like it's fine. It's not a big talking point. That's all it's gonna get.
Sounds very reasonable.
Now this next one. Ashiok Dream Render.
Oh,
Legendary
boy.
Planeswalker Ashiok. Their starting loyalty is 5, costs 1 and then 2 hybrid blue-black mana. Static ability, spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. A fucking stranglehold in the best color in the format. And as if that wasn't enough, on a card, straight up, 3 mana, 5 loyalty, that static ability, you're done. Probably playable. Maybe playable. -1. Target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard. This is a stranglehold graveyard hate.
Yes.
That also fucks with top deck tutors. 5 starting loyalty. Mana cost is basically 3 generic mana if you're playing a real deck.
Yes. Oh my god. Oh, this. On one hand, I'm so excited that this exists for like 4-color Rush Me. On the other hand, I dread this thing's existence and ubiquity for any of my Hulk builds. Jesus.
Yeah. This card is strong. Assuming, as I've mentioned before, you satisfy Dan's requirements for Planeswalkers in the format, this is a slam dunk.
Oh, yes, it is. It really is.
I mean, do we have to say more? It's a 3-drop that shuts off like 20 to 30 cards in every single deck.
Yeah.
Asymmetrically. And also is graveyard hate.
Yeah, it just, I mean, and like, there's gonna be a good amount of situations where people just wheel and then combo pieces are in the graveyard and you randomly slam an Ashiok and just wreck.
Oh, that's actually the
whole
perfect
table.
point for me to discuss something that has like, it's always ground my gears, but I never really talk about it. Twister loops as a dedicated primary win con are fragile relative to point in the game, random graveyard hate, shenanigans like that. This card is the first incidental graveyard hate that is going to be really commonly played. So if you play Twister loops as your primary win con, dear God, play a real outlet too.
No.
All right then. Dovin, Hand of Control. Legendary Planeswalker Dovin. Who'd have guessed? Starting loyalty is 5. His mana cost is 2 and 1 hybrid white-blue. Static ability is artifact, instant, and sorcery spells your opponent's cast cost 1 more to cast, and -1 until your next turn. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent opponent controls. So this is like a 3-mana asymmetrical sphere.
Yeah, or 1 mana if you're playing Grand Arbiter.
Or 1 mana if you're playing Grand Arbiter. Deathrite Shaman is still a better 1 mana planeswalker, but this isn't bad. And the -1 is like fine. It's honestly not bad. It protects him pretty aggressively. It also kills him as he uses it. So there's like that trade-off. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's an asymmetric sphere.
Yeah. Not really much else to say.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what he does,
yeah,
and
that's yep.
specifically in Grand Arbiter, I think he's going to be fantastic. Maybe we're going to see a few other decks here and there that might make use of him, but that's really my primary consideration for this card.
Yeah. And that's about all we have to say on the matter. Karn, the Great Creator. Legendary Planeswalker Karn, starting with his 5. Mana cost is 4 generic mana. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. Oh my god, asymmetric Null Rod. I would pay 4 mana for that. +1 until your next turn. Up to one target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to their converted mana cost. So he does the Karn thing and blows up Moxen.
Oh yeah. Wait,
And
has
-2.
every Karn ever blown up Moxen?
If you count Karn Liberated's minus as technically being able to
Yeah.
blow up Moxen, then yeah, every single Karn. Nope. Other 4-drop Karn, I don't believe blows up Moxen.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He just draws you cards and then makes
Yeah.
little dongers. -2, you may choose an artifact card you own in exile. Reveal that card and put it into your hand.
Yeah. So
it's an asymmetric Null Rod. That's pretty bananas.
yeah. I think where I'm gonna like this is Paradox Sisse. Not just because it's an asymmetric tutorable Null Rod, but also because it synergizes with the new Weatherlight line.
Oh my god! Boat Art gets Karn! And well, other stuff. That's just wonderful. Yeah, every Sisse player I've talked to so far has been like, yeah, Karn's pretty good. We're going to play him.
And understandably so, I'd say.
Yeah. Like Dovin, that's mostly the discussion. Actually, I guess, let me point out the other part. On his -2, you may notice if you're watching visually, I omitted a segment of the rules text. That is because cards you own from outside the game is not functional rules text in Commander. Rule 13 of the Commander rules says, well, I actually can't quote it from memory, but the point is, you can't have wish boards. You can't get stuff from your sideboard. Casually, yeah, sure, grab whatever random shit you want from your collection or from a sideboard if you use those. If you're building competitively, you cannot assume that people will be like, yeah, it's chill, grab your play, like whatever binder you have or your sideboard or stuff, because that's not officially in the rules. You do not get those in events. You cannot use that effect on Karn. So we will not evaluate it as if that was part of the ability, because it's not.
Yeah.
It is nice upside, though. With that, we are done with the non-lands. We have 2 more cards left to talk about, nearing the end of this War of the Spark set review. First up is Blast Zone. Blast Zone is a land, as would be implied by reaching the end of non-lands. Good narrating, Dan. Blast Zone enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it. Tap, add 1 colorless mana. XX tap, put X charge counters on Blast Zone. 3 tap, sacrifice Blast Zone, destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So this is like an engineered explosives ratchet bomb land thing.
Yeah. And so obviously this is not like the most powerful thing ever. However, it is on a land, which is quite noteworthy, and this means that for some decks at least, the cost of including this is going to be very, very low.
For very few decks, I agree.
For monocolor decks, essentially.
Yeah. For Teferi and probably, I don't know, Yisan or something.
Maybe.
Mostly for Teferi, I expect.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm definitely going to try it in Teferi. I'm not even sure if it's going to stick there, but like, it has a very real potential upside because Carpet of Flowers and Mystic Remora are 2 of the absolute worst cards to play against as Teferi. Now that we are going to have Narset in the deck, we want a bit more protection against mana dogs, which this also provides.
Alright.
And it randomly hits a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So for being essentially free to include for the most part, I think this might be worth it.
Yeah. Especially because, so initially I had considered entering the battlefield with a charge counter to be a downside, because there's a lot of powerful zeros that you would like to be able to hit. But it also means that this is functionally a 4-mana colorless sorcery that wraths 1-drops. And
Yeah.
that's not bad. Especially in Teferi, because you have like no 1-drops that sit and play.
Yeah, I've got like
This is
Remora, Sol Ring, Mana Vault.
this actually seems almost tailor-made for Teferi. The only part that bothers me is the 3 generic in the boom ability.
Yeah.
That's hefty.
It
But
is a bit annoying.
you also have ramp out your butt, so
Yeah. I quite like it, and I think it's a card that's worth experimenting with.
yeah, certainly. It is a powerful effect. Lastly, we have Emergence Zone. This is a land with tap, add a colorless mana. 1 in tap, sacrifice Emergence Zone. You may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So this is a 1-shot Alchemist Refuge in no colors.
Instantly, what comes to mind is Gitrog. Like, you can crop rotate into this while you're going off. This instantly turns any sorcery spell you have into an outlet. And I know a lot of Gitrog decks run stuff like Praetor's Grasp. So,
Yeah.
with this in your deck, you don't need any other weird outlet cards like Geth's Verdict or Ebony Charm or stuff like that. You just crop rotate into Emergent Zone and you keep Praetor's Grasping people. And other nice upside of that is quite relevant for the Gitrog end step sculpt way of
yeah, I was just
going
thinking about
off,
that.
is that this line of play means you only need to make 1 green mana, so you don't need to get started on like Necromancy, Rift Sweeper stuff with Elvish Spirit Guide, because
I'm
instead
pretty
of
sure
that,
they're off all 3 of those cards now.
oh, they are. That's good to hear because that was
Gitrog
quite
has been
clunky.
nonsense, though. Yeah.
But yeah,
Either way, this is still
so,
pretty cool for end step sculpts in general.
Yeah,
The baseline for actually being done with the you're gonna get DQ'd for this actions is lower.
very much so. And I'm not sure if this is gonna have applications in other places, because if it didn't sack itself, it would be neat to just like end of turn or in response play out a hate piece. But giving up a land to do that is kind of a tough sell.
Yeah, if it didn't sack itself, this card would almost be probably really good.
Yeah.
As it is, it's a get rug card. And that's probably it.
I agree.
Okay. With Emergent Zone, we have somehow concluded our set review of War of the Spark. I think that's the most cards we've ever reviewed in a set by a large margin.
Mm-hmm.
Sigi, do you have any final thoughts on the set? Doesn't have to just be cEDH, it can be whatever you want.
This set is a complete slam dunk. I'm quite confident that this set has the most cards that are gonna be relevant for cEDH out of like any set I can think of. This
Alpha.
is I mean,
Or beta,
maybe if you
sorry.
count like dual
Well,
lands and that kind
yeah,
of stuff.
Plateau's
but,
not an alpha, so alpha.
But I mean, this is complete madness. And we're not just getting like random cards that are only playable in one deck. We are getting a whole pile of like instant format staples that are not just staples that slot into existing strategies and the decks kind of just keep going about their day the way they used to. Some of these cards are going to have a very significant impact on how competitive EDH is going to be played from this point onwards.
Yeah, I am incredibly excited. I don't think a time frame will have done this much to impact competitive EDH since the partners and Hulk kind of thing that all happened mostly at the same time. So since the format got turned on its head, then I think this is the biggest thing that's going to happen to it.
Yep.
For a while, probably. This set is stacked. I have not been this excited about a set in close to a decade, which is saying something. So I love everything about it. I love the story, and I don't even care about the Magic story. I love the art. I love the cards. I love the cards. I love more of the cards. I love even more of the cards. I love everything about play design for making this happen and giving us good cards again. Thank you so much. And I'm just really excited about this set. It's amazing. I'm probably going to a pre-release.
Same. Yeah. If I'm back to being like not sick on Saturday, I'm 100% going to the pre-release.
Good. And you should too.
Oh yeah.
With that, I will wrap up our War of the Spark set review for competitive EDH. He has been Sigi, I have been Dan, and we will see you next time with whatever video we come out with when this one's done airing.
Yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.